Hello, Emery, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
two people here. Call to order the council meeting for February 28th, 2023. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Place your right
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, as you call the roll. Okay.
A quorum is present for the City Council, successor agency, Housing Authority, and Parking Authority.
Before we get started, I want to give a proclamation declaring March 2023 as American Red Cross Month. Whereas during American Red Cross is in March, we celebrate the humanitarian spirit of the city of Inglewood and reaffirm our commitment to help ensure that no one faces a crisis alone. And whereas caring for one another is at the heart of our community and exemplified by the people of Inglewood, whose simple acts of kindness through the Red Cross provide help and hope in people's most difficult moments, continuing the life-saving legacy of Clara Barton, who founded the organization more than 140 years ago to prevent and alleviate human suffering. And whereas every day these ordinary individuals lend a helping hand to make an extraordinary difference for neighbors in need of providing emergency shelter, food, and comfort for families displaced by home fires and other disasters, donating life-saving blood for cancer patients, accident victims, and people with sickle cell disease and other life-threatening conditions, supporting military members and veterans, along with their families and caregivers, through the unique challenges of service, using vital skills like first aid and CPR to help others survive medical emergencies, or delivering international humanitarian aid and reconnecting loved ones separated by crises around the world. And whereas their support, volunteerism, and generous donations are critical to our community's resilience, and whereas we hereby recognize this month of March in honor of all of those who fulfill Clara Barton's noble words, you must never think of anything except the need and how to meet it, and ask everyone to join in this commitment. Now, therefore, be it known that the mayor and council members of the city of Inglewood, California, do hereby proclaim March 2023 as Red Cross Month. We encourage all citizens of Inglewood to reach out and support its humanitarian mission. Presented this 28th day of February, 2023. Do we have members of the Red Cross here? You're welcome to accept the plaque and say a few words if you care to. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
He knew that.
So just testing. I just really want to express our deep gratitude for all of our leadership here in the city of Inglewood for recognizing March as Red Cross Month in 2023 and the great work that your residents and the leadership here is committed to, especially for our fire victims, our service members. I'm really looking forward to doing more great work together because, as we're all saying, the need is greater than ever. So I stand here renewing my commitment to our residents here with our disaster program manager, Savannah. We're looking forward to doing some more great work together. So thank you all again. Thank you. Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Okay, before we go to the agenda, we have public comment. And anyone that wants to call in to speak on an agenda item with a limit of 3 minutes may call 888-251-2949 or 215-861-0694. The access code for February 28th is 863-231-5#. and then wait 3 seconds and press pound again. Operator, are there any callers?
Callers, if you wish to make a comment, please press #2 and your line will be unmuted. There are no callers in the queue.
Okay, with that, we'll go to the library lecture hall. Are there any speakers in the hall?
Marvin McCoy, District 2. That proclamation was longer than the Bible. But when they say, give them games and circuses, it distracts the crowd. This agenda is delicioso. There's so much fraudulent stuff going on here, it's crazy. So, wrote a bunch of notes. I wish I had access to the staff reports, but you have to read them online, and if you do that, you'll be as blind as Stevie Wonder. But you guys don't make these reports available for a reason. So with that being said, let's go to the first one. That's a public hearing. We're going to talk about IPD having military weapons. I barely trust them with a water gun, but that's another thing.
Well, you would have to speak on that at the public
Freedom of
hearing.
speech?
Mute him.
Freedom of speech?
You'll have to talk about that.
I know.
Would you mute him, Thomas? You're going to have to talk about that at the public hearing. All right? So that we can.
Come on, I'm going.
You're going to have to calm down. And now unmute him.
Okay, there we go. I told you we're going to play this, we're going to do this dance, James Butts. Let's see. Let's talk about that, the warrant register. And let's talk about that. There's $500,000 out to law enforcement outside agencies. If you look at the budget summary report, which is glowingly fraudulent, you guys have a drop in emissions tax that you can't explain, and the numbers don't look good. You can mince words and funny money and monopoly stuff, but the cost, I don't understand. You have fixed costs, and you're explaining that these exorbitant costs for fire and police go up every year. Because now, what literally happening, we're subsidizing SoFi. Because we're not recouping the money from the legal costs. You didn't see, when you're the smartest person in the room, you don't negotiate the best deals. So we're losing a crap load of money on law enforcement. Plus, it seems like the city is overly compensating their employees because everybody in here drives brand new vehicles. Even how do you get a bodyguard anyway? Are you Beyonce? Why is he driving around a brand new vehicle?
You know, you're really not talking on the agenda.
I'm talking about taxpayers.
Thank you, Marvin. Appreciate it. Are there any other speakers?
No other speakers, man.
Okay, with that, we'll close public comment. Item 1, CSA 1 and H1.
Warrant register.
Madam City Clerk.
Council members, successor agency members, and housing authority members, Dotson, Padilla, Morales.
Aye.
Falk. Mayor Chairman Butts.
Aye. PH1 will be continued to the meeting of March 21st, 2023 at 2 p.m. Madam Clerk, what's the next scheduled matter?
Yes, Mayor. The next scheduled matter is a public hearing pursuant to Assembly Bill 481 to consider approval of Inglewood Police Department Policy 709 to provide guidelines for the approval, acquisition, and reporting requirements of military equipment.
Has the notice of this hearing been given in the time, form, and manner as required by law? And do you have the affidavit on file?
Yes, Mayor. Notice has been given and an affidavit is on file.
Have any communications been received on the matter?
No communications have been received, Mayor.
Is there a staff report?
Yes, Acting Chief Cordell Hurt will give the staff report.
How you doing, Mayor?
Good afternoon, Chief.
I'm here today to recommend that the mayor and council take the following action. Chief, Back up a little bit. Receive public comments pursuant to Assembly Bill 481 to approve Inglewood Police Department Policy 709, military equipment to provide guidelines for the approval, acquisition, and reporting requirements of military equipment. Adopt the ordinance amending the Inglewood Municipal Code by adding Chapter 2-168.1 to Chapter 2, approving Inglewood Police Department Policy 709, military equipment. Assembly Bill 41 was adopted by the California Legislative and approved by Governor Galvin Newsom. It's designed to increase community awareness and oversight over the possession and use of certain types of equipment by local police departments, which AB 481 defines as military equipment and requires the City Council to provide authorization and oversight over their equipment. It requires law enforcement agencies to produce a military equipment use policy that identifies and describes each type of military equipment and its authorized use, fiscal impact, rules, laws that govern the use of such equipment, training required, and mechanisms to ensure compliance within the policy. Additionally, the law requires an annual report and review by the City Council for continued use of the equipment, which should be submitted by the police department and will be posted on the department website. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Is there any public comment? Operator, any callers?
We have one caller in the queue. Caller, go ahead.
Hi, I'm actually calling for agenda item PH1, and I heard that it's going to be postponed.
Continued until March 21st.
Okay, so do I reserve my public comment to that date?
You would have to, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. You guys have a great day.
You're welcome. With that, we'll go to the Library Lecture Hall for comments on PH2.
Good to see acting Chief Cardell Hurt. I like that guy, love that guy. I hope he's in a permanent role soon. I hope he's in a permanent role. George Dotson's gone. You're indicted. Well, that was another story. So with that being said, in this day of George Floyd, in this city, we all said we were going to never again a George Floyd. A house divided against itself will fall. The fact that the city of Inglewood has and continues to acquire weapon-grade material is very scary. Because here's that. I understand the reality of mass shootings, and in that caveat, you have to give the police deference the ability to protect lives. But that partnership has to go both ways. This city hasn't had a police commission meeting in years. So you're asking me to extend that trust to you to have military-grade weapons, but you won't hear our concerns. This is the same police department that murdered two people sleeping at a light and secretly settled it without telling the general public, which was, you guys should have been, to me, the district attorney should have prosecuted you guys. Because it even came up for a vote, if I don't remember. You guys are being sued by the ACLU because you guys won't turn over records. You're asking for an extension of a trust with military-grade weapon, and you don't respect us. See, y'all can play these cute little games, little Market Street vendings, but you have guys have lost a disconnect. There's a disconnect here. And it starts with that mayor. Watch, he's on the phone. Oh, his bodyguard. It's Kevin Costner over here. Look at him. Real cute.
Okay, we're about
Looking like
to
fake Dwayne
cut
The
you
Rock
off,
Johnson.
Marvin.
Get out of here. I'm done.
You are done. Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Okay. With that, we'll end public comment. Is there a motion? First of all, motion to waive further reading. Madam City Clerk.
Council members Dotson, Padilla, Morales, Fogg, Mayor Buds.
Aye, and Councilman Morales moved 2 and 4. I'll second. Madam City Clerk.
Council members Dodson,
Aye.
Padilla.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Fogg.
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. Consent calendar items 1 through 9. Excuse me, item 2. Item 2.
2 through 12.
2 through, hold on.
2 through 12, Mayor.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, 2
Yes,
through
sir.
Man, that's a new one. Okay, 2 through 12.
So moved.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Council members Dodson,
Aye.
Padilla.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Fogg.
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye, DR1.
Staff report presenting the fiscal year 2022 through 2023 first quarter budget review report.
Budget Manager, Ms. Kiona Buchanan will give the staff report.
Welcome, Ms. Buchanan.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mayor, council members, staff, members of the public. So I am glad to present this afternoon the city's fiscal year 22-23 first quarter presentation report based on the first 3 months of the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022. The first quarter report presentation provides a snapshot and a summary of the city's financial status, primarily focusing on the general fund, but also highlighting a brief summary of our special funds. With that, we will begin with the snapshot of the key economic indicators for the city of Inglewood. So as you can see here, our property tax has an increase of 7.2% net taxable value increase for the 22-23 tax roll. That was modestly more than the countywide at 7%. This is attributable to the increase in assessed property values and the 2% assessors applied California Tax Consumer Price Index. Our sales tax quarterly trends are experiencing an increase of 26% over the same period prior year. Some of this increase is inflationary and revival from COVID. I will give some details to all of these economic indicators at a later time in the next slide.
Could, Ms. Buchanan, could we make something very clear? That, first of all, there was not a 7.2% increase in the rate charged to properties in the city, that part of it is part of a 2% increase that the assessors allowed to assess if a property is valued at a certain level beyond the last 2 years. Is that right?
That's correct.
This is no increase attributable to any city
Nothing to
action.
do with increases in taxes.
Exactly.
This is simply increase in assessed property values.
Exactly.
Based-
And this could result from someone buying a commercial property for $1.6 million added to the tax roll after it's assessed. It may have been valued at $800,000, sells for 1.6, and now the assessed value is higher.
That
These
is
are the kinds
correct.
of things that happen. Okay, and you may not have this information, but I'm sure the city manager does. There's been an increase
I have it.
in the purchases of commercial property over the past year. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay, so I just want to put this in perspective so that people that own homes don't think that their taxes went up 7.2%. That just isn't the case. This is a combination of things. This is the assessed value of property, and it includes sales of homes and commercial buildings.
Yes.
Okay, and then secondly, the 26% increase in sales taxes is not a 26% increase in taxes applied to sales. It would largely result from an increase in sales. Isn't that correct?
Yes, an increase in sales from, we're rebounding from COVID being
Yeah.
one, but also the inflationary increase in cost in general. So that will increase your taxes.
And then you also mentioned COVID has an impact where everything's kind of coming back.
The
so there's a
rebound of
variety.
all that, yes. And I'll actually
What
give
I
a
wanna
little bit
make
more
perfectly
specifics
clear,
on
though,
that too again.
There's been no increase
In taxes.
in the rate of sales tax.
That is correct.
All right, thank you. All right.
Yes. And so our building permit fees, which is also a key economic indicator for us with all of the development that's going on in the city, our building permit activity is up 836% over prior year same period. Now, these increases have been highly anticipated due to the ongoing new developments throughout the city. So that's all developments collectively, but a significant portion of this amount was the result of some of the one-time development fees for the new construction from the IBEC Center, which is also known as the Intuit Dome.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's break this down. This enormous increase in permit fees is related to people that build new things. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
building fees.
And so people that own homes, unless they were doing like a remodel of the house, they wouldn't be part of this permit fee number. Is that right?
That is correct.
And to go back to sales taxes again, the reality is that with the Forum and SoFi holding events, hundreds of thousands more people come in the city. And since COVID is over, they buy things. And that's partly attributable to that 26% increase in the yield of sales taxes for revenues. Is that right?
Yes, that is
All right.
correct.
Thank you. Carry on.
Okay. And so our utility users tax has increased 32.8% over the same period as well from prior year, mostly from the electrical UUT in this specific case. Our transit occupancy tax.
Can we explain that a little bit better?
Yes.
So 32.8% in UUT, and you said attributable to electricity.
Mhm.
So
The
why
majority
would
is
that be?
attributed
Would
to
it be an
electricity.
increase in electricity rates? Why would that be? Or an increase in usage?
Now, the majority of the increase is from the usage. We have an increased usage from all the development and all the different construction that's going on.
Yeah,
Now, there
exactly.
has been a slight increase in some electrical cost, which is associated with the electric company, not the city of Inglewood. We receive a portion of the taxes, and our taxes has not changed.
And that's what I really want to make clear. The large bulk of this 32% increase is because there has been new development.
Yes.
And with development, people have electrical accounts, and now more electricity is used in the city, and therefore we receive more utility user taxes.
Yes.
So this doesn't come in large part from the residential base. This is because the city has expanded. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
And our transit occupancy tax, which is also known as the hotel tax, has increased 35.6% compared to the prior year, same period. Now, this is also a combination of revived activity as well from, visiting the hotels or whatnot, from the rebound, also from COVID, though there was a slight rate increase on behalf of the city. Okay? But the most significant portion of that is the revived activity. And I would like to add that even till today, TOT has not rebounded fully to its prior revenue stream that we did have prior to COVID. So there is still some expected increases to come.
Okay.
Okay?
I
We
got
good
it.
there?
I'm good.
Yes. Okay. So the unemployment for the city is 5% down, approximately 31.5% compared to the same quarter last fiscal year, which was at 7.3% during this time.
So what you're saying, the rate is 5%.
That, yes,
Okay, so it's not down 5%. The city
it's 5%.
city unemployment rate is 5%.
Yes.
And that is down
Down
31.5% over the last year. Okay.
Yes. Yes. The overall city expenditures for the general fund are under budget at 19.4% of the proportionate spending of 25% at first quarter, which I will give some detailed information regarding the city's expenditures a little following a few slides here. Okay. So this slide represents a snapshot of the general fund budget as adopted on October 1st, 2022. The general fund was $195.9 million at adoption, and the city was projecting and the revenues, I'm sorry, were 201.8, and we were projecting an operating fund balance of 5.9 for the fiscal year. We will be providing some additional information relative to where we anticipate our year end being more closer to the 6 month, which would be presented at the mid-year. So here I will actually give some information. These are regarding our revenue categories that make up the total general fund revenues. It is important to note that the admissions tax has been added as its own category, which used to be included in other revenues, and it's now its own category due to the significance in value. It is now one of the top 5 revenues for the general fund. So of the current total general fund revenue budget amount of $191.3 million, the city has received $57.4 million, or 30% in revenues at first quarter, compared to $38.9 million in the prior year same period. On the next slide, I will go through each of these revenue categories and briefly discuss the increases and or decreases by category. So here's where I'll give you a little bit more detail to our revenue performances in relation to the first quarter, which a few were already stated in our economic indicators, but these are the more specific ones that make up our general fund as a whole. So property taxes are up $725,584, or 8.7%. The city has benefited from the substantial growth of residential values. The growth was $623 million, which makes up about 8.7% and accounts for 60% of all the value growth. That's based on residential. So that remaining growth would include commercial and so forth. Property tax has experienced a 7.2 net taxable value increase. I'd also like to note that the city's current taxable assessed value is $15.3 billion for the 22-23 tax roll, and that is approximately $8.7 billion difference from 10 years ago. So we good there?
Very good.
Yes. So that identifies what you were expressing at the beginning and how the increased value to properties have changed, not the taxes.
Exact. Taxes haven't changed. And that is in large part due to the turnover of properties because they're sold at the
Yes.
new value.
That is
right?
correct, yes.
Okay.
And then the new assessment is what we are now experiencing. Sales tax is up $1.5 million, or 26%. This increase is attributed to the rising cost of goods, services, and gas fuel due to inflationary factors, and continued strong consumer spending, particularly in automobiles, as well as the resurgence of travel and demands for electric and hybrid models vehicles, which has helped support the growth in the industry as well. Our admissions tax is $7.2 million, or 58.4% less than the prior year same period. Now, although the revenues in this category appear lower than prior year, this is due to what we consider a lag in adjustments in the prior year as opposed to the current. There is a natural lag due to seasonal cycles. Revenues are expected to reach their cap by the end of the year. Admissions tax is driven by not only seasonal, but the performance that goes on at the entertainment venues, which could be seasonal based on which type of events we have.
Let's be even more direct. We receive admission tax when there are events.
Yes.
If in this quarter, there weren't as many events as there were this quarter last year, it's going to appear that revenues are down because they
Yes.
are down because there were less events.
In that
We
period.
expect over the year that it's going to even out because it's in the venue's interest to make money. And so we expect that things will level out by year's end. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, thank you.
The utility users tax is up 1.1 million or 32.8%. This is significantly higher due to receipts for electricity and a slight increase in gas and phone correlated with higher demand and utility charges. Our other local taxes, which are made up of business license, card club, TOT, parimutuel, franchises, and a few others, are up approximately 2 million or 43.5%. The most significant increase is due to additional parking tax revenues generated from the SoFi Stadium and non-residential construction taxes related to the new construction of the IBEX Center and other major structures, which is other developments. Moreover, the transient occupancy tax revenues have increased due to the upturn of hotel stays and the passage of Measure H. Our other revenues are up approximately 20.4 million or 448%. So this increase results from intergovernmental revenue from the Federal Fund American Rescue Act, which is known as ARPA. That is which is a one-time that we've received as a replenishment of our lost revenue during COVID, as well as the one-time development fees for new construction and billboard fees resulting from the Super Bowl advertisement. Overall, revenues are 18.5 million or 47.5% more than the prior year, mostly due to, in these categories, other local tax revenues and other revenue. Okay, so here is our first quarter general fund expenditure performances. So we're focusing on the general fund expenditures here and their categories. Of the total current general fund expenditure budget amount of $209.4 million, the city has expended $40.7 million or 19.4% in the first quarter compared to $33.4 million in the prior year. On the next slide, as I did with the revenues, I will go through each of these categories and explain the increases and or any decreases related to each category. Okay. So for the first quarter general fund expenditure performances related to police and fire expenditures, combined, they are up 2.5 million or 11% more than prior year, same period. This increase is attributable to the negotiated wage and benefit increases as well as overtime. Economic and community development is 16,000 or 1.2% less than the expenses incurred in the same period last fiscal year, which is relatively flat. Housing protection shows an increase of $42,729 or 7.4%. We had an addition to that department, which is now called our short-term rental division, which was added to this department and has increased the personnel costs compared to the prior year same period. Parks, Recreation, and Community Services is $227,000 approximately, or 11.1% more than the same period last fiscal year. This is mostly due to vacant positions now being filled and its corresponding or related benefits. Library has experienced an increase as well, slightly by $54,429 or 6.9%. This is also mostly due to vacant positions being filled and the related benefits. Public Works is up $942,000 or 48.9%. This increase is largely due to reimbursable traffic services and lease renewal expenses. Other than that, the operation of the department is relatively flat as well. General government, which makes up our mayor, council, treasury, city clerk, legal administration, HR, and finance departments respectively, are down approximately $60,000 or 1.5% less than the expenses incurred in the same period last fiscal year, which is relatively flat. And overall, general fund expenditures are $7.3 million or 21.9% more than the same period last fiscal year. So this slide represents our first quarter special funds and their performances. I will speak to the special fund categories on the revenue side first, and then I'll speak to the expenditure side for the same categories thereafter. So the special fund revenues are up $12 million or 106.4% collectively from the same period last year. We received 14.9% of the budget, and this increase is attributed to varying activity levels related to our Measure IT support for vital city services, our transfer in and out for our ARPA revenue, as well as the Measure R Inglewood Transit Connector. The proprietary fund, which consists of water, sewer, and sanitation and parking, revenues are up $727,534 or 7.1% collectively from the same quarter last fiscal year. We received 23.3% of the budget. These revenues have increased significantly in parking and sanitation and are slightly offset by water during this period. The debt service presented in the revenues is up $5 million compared to prior, and that amount varies based on the debt schedules that we use in terms of our debt payments that are transferred in and out for the support of the actual payment. In regards to the expenditure, which is the bottom half of the screen there for our special fund categories, the special revenue funds for those expenses are up $31.4 million or 243% for the same quarter. We have expended 25.7% of the budget. $34 million is mostly attributed to the Inglewood Transit Connector project. Our proprietary fund expenses are up $1.4 million or 25.5% collectively for the same quarter last fiscal year. We have expended 12.8% of the budget as of our first quarter, and this increase in expenditures is a reflection of the sanitation fund invoices that were paid in the second quarter in the prior year compared to this quarter of the first year. Overall, there is not an increase in the overall annual. It's just the way that the payments were expended this fiscal year.
Okay, could you go back to the increase attributed to $34 million on the ITC project? Would you explain the difference between the general fund expenditures and a special fund expenditure?
So the special fund expenditures, which we're speaking of now, are all of the expenditures related to restricted funds that we were provided revenue for in support of a specific activity.
Exactly, and so these are not funds that came from Inglewood taxpayers. These were grants,
Federal funding.
highway funds, CDBG
Correct,
funds
federal, state, and grant.
that didn't come from Inglewood residents.
That is
So
correct.
that $34 million comes from actually the TRICP grant that we received years ago for planning and preparation for the ITC, is that right?
Yes.
And they're based on our qualifications as a city, right? When we get it for
Yeah.
certain zones,
Yes. Yes. And they determine what we receive.
not necessarily gonna be the same every year or anything else. They're based on those things.
Yes.
But the grants are a competitive process, and the city competed for those grants with every other city that applied in the state, is that right?
Yes.
All right,
For those, yeah.
thank you.
Those that applied.
All right.
And as far as the expenditure portion, to date, there are no reportable expenditures for the first quarter related to our bond payments. Though you've seen the revenue, we have did our transfer in for the support of that expense that is to come. Okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so here we have our first quarter capital improvement project financial summary. So the capital improvement project budget includes a current appropriation of $130 million. And of this amount, a total of $23.1 million or 17.8% has been expended as of the first quarter ending December 31st, 2022. There is a total encumbrance amount for future commitments of $57.9 million or 44.6% of the total appropriation. If we can get this to not working.
So I have a question there real quick, Mayor, because I'm, just for me to be clear.
Councilman
Got it.
Morales has a question.
Yeah,
My question, going back to the previous slide that just was up for the 129 appropriation amount versus the 44%, I guess we've encumbered, right? But did we budget for 129?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so if we don't encumber it, going back to what the mayor brought back the last budget study, if we don't use up all of what we've appropriated, that's actually gonna be left in our budget amount at the end. In other words, that would be unused amount that we had previously planned to use.
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct. So our current appropriation is $130 million. We've only expended, as of December, 23.1, and we have a current commitment of 57.9.
If we don't commit the
So-
rest, that's the space left.
Yes.
Okay, we will, some of it, but I just wanted to understand those were the numbers.
And so for understanding for the
Yes.
public, and either Mr. Atwell or Mr. Fields can chime in, the reality is that we budget ambitiously for projects that seldom are completed in the same budget cycle as they're budgeted for. However, in the event that they do go further than we would expect, we have to have the money appropriated. And that's why numerous times we have a carryover. So,
Mr. Mayor, that is correct. These are multi-year projects, so we tend to be conservative when we budget for them. So we have money for that year in case we are accelerating the project. As you said, the TRCP grant was a big windfall, and a lot of that money is being expended currently. And if there's any money left over this year, it'll be pushed into the next year.
all right. Thank you. Please carry on.
That is correct. So this slide shows the project status by category and the activity of the project. So we currently have a total of 27 projects that are in construction phase, be it facilities, parks and open spaces, ADA construction, transit stop improvements, street and roadways, water system improvements, sewer system improvements, street lighting and roadway, as well as public safety. And of that, there are 13 projects that are under design at this time. And as of the first quarter, there were an additional 30 projects that came into play with our budget, but they are currently not active at this moment. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you very much. That was excellent. If there are no questions from the council, we'll move on to
Well, I'll move item 2, Mayor.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Council members Dodson.
Aye.
Padilla.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Fogg. Aye. Mayor Buds.
Aye. DR2, CSA2, H2, and P1.
Staff report recommending that the mayor, chairman, and council successor agency, Housing Authority, Parking Authority members approve Amendment 1 to Agreement Number 22-263 with Kane, Balmer, and Berkman, L.C. for legal services, increasing special counsel's hourly rate and increasing the compensation by an additional amount of $1,050,000.
Move approval.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Council members, successor agency members, Housing Authority members, and Parking Authority members, Dodson.
Aye.
Padilla.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Fogg. Aye. Mayor Chairman Buds.
Aye. That would be SPH 1.
Staff report requesting that the mayor and council members set a public hearing to consider the adoption of a resolution adopting a substantial amendment to the fiscal year 2021 through 2022 annual action plan for the allocation of Home Investment Partnerships Program American Rescue Plan funding from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Set the public hearing for March 21st, 2023 at 2 p.m. We're on to A1.
Thank you, Mayor. We had two closed session items. The first one was Tony Maiden versus City of Inglewood. As to that, a status report was given to the City Council, no reportable action taken. As to CS2, it's a case called Thomas Love versus City of Inglewood. And to that matter, a status report was given to the City Council and no reportable action taken. And as to A2, there's no reports from the City Attorney's Office.
Thank you, sir. CM1.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no oral reports from the City Manager's Office.
Then we'll move on to CC1.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. For our District 1 residents, just a reminder that early voting is still taking place up until Monday, March the 6th. It's open from 10 o'clock a.m. until 7 o'clock p.m. at the Center of Hope. They're located at 9550 Crenshaw Boulevard, and Election Day is next week, Tuesday, March the 7th. Polls open at 7 o'clock a.m. and will close at 8 p.m. And lastly, Mayor, as we close the Black History Month, I would like to end with this quote. It says, "We must never forget that Black history is an American history. The achievements of African Americans have contributed to our nation's greatness." That came from Yvette Clark. Thank you, Mayor. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you. So there are no appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. So now we'll move on to public comment regarding other matters. Any person wishing to address City Council on any matter connected with city business not elsewhere considered on the agenda may do so at this time. Persons with complaints regarding city management should consider contacting the city manager for resolution. Operator, are there any callers?
Callers, if you wish to make a comment, please press #2 and your line will be unmuted. There is one caller in the queue.
Caller, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. Because I live in the city, but I never can get in touch, with the mayor or of that matter. So I wanted to know, how do I get some help about that?
Were you talking to him right now?
Okay. Well, hi. Good afternoon, Mayor Butts. Because I live in a building, well, it's in the city of Gardena, but I'm never able to reach my mayor or get in contact with my mayor or of that nature. So, is it any way that you may be assistance to me?
Okay, so what I would do, I would call Gardena City Hall, ask to speak to the mayor's assistant or secretary, and then pass on your message to that person, and they will contact the mayor. The mayor will do one or two things. They'll contact you personally, or they'll pass your question or concern on to the appropriate city staff who will contact you.
Okay.
All right?
Alrighty.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
I will. I'll try that and see what happens. And I just want to say that you, as a mayor for the city of Inglewood, that you're doing a great job, an excellent job, and I love how your community is thriving and bringing job opportunities to the community, and building the community as a whole.
Thank you, and you're welcome to call back every
Great job.
Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Thank you, Belle. Operator, are there any other callers?
There are no more callers.
All right, we'll go to the library lecture hall.
Family in Alabama will call and say some nice things about you if that's what you want, if you want your ego stroked. Did they all get that memo in there that they were not supposed to be in there, that it's a bubonic plague or something in there? Because that chamber is pretty crowded. That budget presentation was just about as colorful as a James Cameron movie. You're basically saying the property taxes are up, but you only benefit that your property tax rises if you sell your property. So people who've been in their homes are ever going to be burdened with these tax bills. And it's not because it's speculation. Now, this TOT tax that Keoka talks about that the city slightly increased, no, it was by a tax measure, young lady. And it was after you guys declared a fiscal emergency, which technically you haven't declared that fiscal emergency over, so it still exists. So you were intended to get $4 million off Measure M, and you see your costs out of control. The city is basically broke. You guys can't even.
Thank you, Marvin. Appreciate it. Are there any other speakers? Doesn't look like it. Okay, with that, we'll close public comment. And we'll go to mayor and council
Another
remarks.
one, actually.
Oh, sorry, sir. Go ahead. Go right ahead, sir.
Okay. Mayor Butts, members of the city council, those of you in the staff, and those of you listening to the sound of my voice, I'm Morris Griffin. I'm better known as Big Money, Griff, the problem solver. Mayor, I rise today on behalf of the fact that here we are in the last day of Black History Month, and in my complex I have 12 units, and 2 of those 12 units is bachelors. I happen to have one of the bachelors that I'm still pulling the bed out of the wall, a Murphy bed. I say that to say this. We're talking about fair market value. Where's the fair market value when I'm being charged 10% for an apartment that doesn't even have a 1-bedroom? All 12 apartments, or all 10 of the 12 apartments, have 1 bedroom except for 2. And I'm being charged for 10%. Now, the problem that I'm having with that 10% is that we don't even have the sound abatement in our complex.
Okay,
And so I just
Mr.
need you to
Griffin?
know that I talked to city city attorney twice and didn't get no response.
Mr.
So
Griffin?
could somebody answer my question? Where's the fair market value? Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, sir, you can contact the Housing Protection. We have a 3% plus the cost of inflation cap unless the property is being rented below average market value. And so to find out whether or not that applies in your situation, you would call the Housing Protection Division of the City of Inglewood, and they can give you information. Now, as far as the configuration of a property, that has nothing to do with the allowable increase. The allowable increase is what the legally allowable increase is. All right? So call the Housing Protection Unit. Thank you, sir. With that, we will close public comment, and we'll go to mayor and council remarks. Councilman Dodson, District 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to start off with a compliment to the Public Works Department, Louis Atwell and his team. I've received several letters actually complimenting you and your team. You have been doing a wonderful job. The one letter said you guys did the job, left it neat and clean. So, as far as I'm concerned, That's a great job, and thank to you and all your team members. The next, I'd like to talk about the Kingdom Day Festival. This is special to me because we started this, I was on the first committee that started this commission. Whoever thought it would go for 40 years? And whoever thought it would be as big as it is now? We started very small, and now it's one of the largest things we do here in the city. And I'm telling you, if you missed this year, I mean, it was great. They closed down Market Street. We had bands. We had singing. I mean, it was just absolutely wonderful. The city really showed out. So if you missed it this year, make sure that you don't miss it next year, because it's going to be even better next year. I was pleased to go to Community Black College Faculty and Staff Association at Lavender Blue. And basically what it is, it's just a minority, mostly black, professors, and they get together and they give each other awards. I was privileged to go to that. They are looking for other members, so if you know someone who's a faculty member at one of the colleges and would like to join this program, please tell them to call my office. And for Black History, I want to put something in it that we never talk about, is golf. I love golf, always have. The guy I want to talk about is Charlie Sifford. Charlie Sifford was born in June 2nd, 1922, Charlotte, North Carolina. He was the first African-American to play on the PGA Tour. So he opened the way for all the minority golfers that came after him. He was great. He was good because he had 22 professional wins and 2 PGA Tours. So Charlie died February 3rd, 2015 at age 92. And I must say, I had the pleasure of meeting him right here at one of our local golf courses. He was some kind of special guy. So the other thing is, I would love to ask the mayor if you would please close the meeting in memory of Mrs. Shirley Pierre. She passed away Thursday, February 16th, 2023. Ms. Pierre was a wonderful member of the Inglewood community. She served here under 2 mayors. She served under Mayor Vinson, and she served under Dorn. She was a member of the community for over 60 years, and my neighbor for 50. So wonderful lady. We're going to miss her. And Mayor, please close the meeting in her honor. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you so much, Councilman. Councilman Padilla, District 2.
Great, thank you, Mayor. So I got a few things, and I may have to ask you in advance for a minute, but let me try and squeeze it all in. First off, I want to thank our interim chief of police, Cardell Hurd, on your presentation. Thank you very much. Very well done. And I want to bring it up only because of this. You know, having been in law enforcement, and then I hear folks, you know, oh, they're getting this military equipment, this takeover mentality. They're going to come in here with, you know, tanks and all that. That's not what this is about, not even close. You know, it's an opportunity for us as a city, for our police department to get some equipment that our personnel can use in an emergency situation, in a life-saving situation. And when that time comes, trust me, if it's your loved one, you're gonna say, thank God our police department had the equipment and the resources to save a life.
to make a difference. And that's what today's presentation by our chief was all about. Understand that there's training, compliance, protocols that are put in place as it relates to this equipment that's going to be acquired and used. So it's not just the police department gets it and they do whatever they want with it. They're going to make best use, but there's protocol and procedures that they have to adhere to. And so I just want to make that clear to our public that's out there before, we get more phone calls and concerns about that we're getting military equipment. The other one I want to talk about is today at 6 o'clock. We did one at 9. IUSD, the school with Dr. James Morris, our county administrator, is having coffee with the parents to come out to Worthington Elementary School at 6 p.m. tonight to meet, Dr. Morris, to talk about any concerns or issues you may have as it relates to our schools. People say, well, I can never get access. I don't, nobody returns calls. He's going to be there in person, live, 6 o'clock. Take advantage of that opportunity. Go out, Worthington, 6 o'clock, have a cup of coffee, have a water, whatever, but it's a one-on-one opportunity to talk about the concerns you might have about what's happening with our school district. The other thing I want to talk about is this Saturday from 10 to 12, there's going to be a meeting taking place, by our Parks and Recs regarding Measure A funding for our parks. People always say, we never get any input. We never get a chance to tell you what we want to do with our parks. This is your opportunity. It's at the Senior Center at Locust. It's this Saturday from 10 to 12. Come on out, make your voice heard. And then I want to talk about real quick homework. Parents, I know sometimes it's a struggle when we have our young kids in school and we're trying to help them with homework. And I know, man, when my kids would come home with some homework, I'm like, oh, damn, I don't understand that, right? You're like overwhelmed. But our library, our main library in Crenshaw, is offering assistance for families, for your children to work on their homework. We have other students that are going to be working on core subject matters to assist our children so we can be better students and prepare our kids for their future. So please take advantage of that opportunity. I can't go on without saying something to Ms. Buchanan. Thank you on your presentation. You know what? That was a great job. That was a lot of information, a lot of things happening with our budget. We're not the small city we once were years ago. We have grown so much, and we're going in all the right directions. There's words and verbiage that's used that sometimes people, they're like, whoa, what did that mean? Like a word you talked about ITC, restricted funds, and the key word was restricted, meaning it can't be used for anything more than that. And then the mayor and Eloy brought up, some of the funding and how we got those funds and why it can only be used for that. And so folks just have to be clear on that. And then when the word of appropriation, some folks like appropriation, what do they mean when they say that when you're talking about budget? It just means that it can only be used for that. It's on hold, it's separated, it's set aside, it's pre-identified, right, for that. And so when you hear these presentations and this terminology, it is a lot to understand, to swallow, but it's a lot of good things that we're doing. So I want to thank you for getting up there. And yeah, it was a long presentation. Folks are probably like, whoa, but guess what? We have to do that. It's part of that transparency that we talk about all the time up here when it comes to our budget, to our funding, what we're doing, how we're spending our money. So nobody can say, wow, you guys are fake left, go right. You guys are doing shamalama. That's what these presentations are for, so the public understands what we're doing with our funding.
That's a technical term, shamalama.
That is technical. And then finally, real quick, Mayor, I just want to save the date.
We're past real quick.
Please, Mayor.
Save the date, March 25th. I'm working together with our Office of Emergency Services, with Brian Walker and his staff, to put together a Ready Inglewood Emergency Preparedness Fair. More information to follow. There's the flyer up there. It's going to talk about everything you need to know in case there's an emergency. Well, I shouldn't say in case, but when that emergency comes, you will be prepared. And that's on March 25th at Rogers Park, starting at 10 a.m. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Dion Falk, District 4.
Thank you, Mayor. So I too attended the King Fest on Saturday, February 18th, and it was an absolutely wonderful event. It was a little bit, it was a switch. We had to transition because the weather was bad when it was originally scheduled, but it seemed like we had even more participation when we were all there on the 18th. And it was well attended, and you just felt the vibes. The kids did such an amazing job with those speeches. So I think one or two of them made some of us up here cry because they were so touching. So that was wonderful. Also, we celebrated the outgoing of a religious icon here in the city of Inglewood, Bishop Omer. I know that Mayor and we were there on Sunday, but they did do a street dedication that is right there where the church is, and it is named Kenneth C. Omer Way. He has been an icon pastor at Faithful Central for over 40 years. And the mayor did the street dedication with him and presented him with the plaque. He'll talk a little bit more about that. And then this past Sunday, we did welcome the new pastor. His name is John Paul Foster to Faithful Central. So a lot going on there with one of our larger churches. Last Friday, we did say goodbye to an icon. Also here in the city, Leona Cahey, she was a well-respected employee, and we were all there and said goodbye to her. She was a lovely lady, and I've only been on the council for 2 years, but the one thing that I remember is how nice she was. I remember that we had a closed session, and I was so hungry one day coming in to council. And we walked in together, and I said, "Oh my God, I'm starving." And I didn't get a chance to eat, and it was like 1 o'clock. And so after our closed session, she went to lunch, and she brought me back a sandwich. And she was like, "I know you're hungry, Councilwoman. Here's a sandwich for you." And I just thought that that was so sweet, and I will hold that memory with me, going forward in memory of her. So she was a very sweet person. Also, I will also be at Inglewood Unified School District, Worthington, tonight at 6 p.m. As you know, our school district is in receivership, and so we are trying to work with our assembly member to come up with a plan, and Dr. Morris, who was recently appointed the new county administrator. So I will be there with Councilman Padilla as well to try and work on some kind of resolution to get our school district out of receivership and work on some of the schools there. So that is it. Also, one quick shout out for Kiana. Wonderful job on the budget. I love that you go slow for our community. And I know that it's all in your head and you could do it with your eyes closed, but the fact that you take so much time, you go slow, you explain everything, and I love that the mayor stops you and answers and asks you questions and you have a good response. So it's really great for the community to understand what's happening with our budget. So thank you again for all that you do for the city as well. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Morales, District 3.
Kiona, I didn't like your report. I'm just playing. You're consistently good, so I don't need to tell you every year. And then Chief Hurt, I couldn't imagine doing my first report next to Super Cop and Super Chief here. So congratulations for that. I'm also glad it's you. You know, you're local. I know you go way back here in the neighborhood, so I'm glad it's you. I don't know where it goes, but you're here now. That being said, Public Works, thank you, Louis. I bother him all weekend. But I'll tell you, this weekend was rough because he told me we lost 14 trees, some in my area. And every time I called, the crew went out there, starting at odd hours. So I appreciate it. Most people don't know, but our Public Works Department is 24/7 if it needs to be. And it's an incredible response. Yeah, applaud Louis. Because everything from a tree branch in the middle of a street to something which was even bigger, which was on the news the other day. One of our big trees fell on Hillcrest on one of the homes and one of the vehicles. So anything could happen, and these folks are out there doing it. So thank you, Louis. Martin Luther King and Black History. It was an awesome celebration, as it always is. We are still kind of living history here, Black history, which is amazing because I said it there, and I'm always grateful that I was raised in a city that celebrates Martin Luther King. It took me I had to grow up to realize not every city does that. Even here in California, it's unique. So we should be really proud of that. My father was also was the first Latino on the MLK committee. So I'm very grateful for that history. And even, I've said it before, but even with our own folks here, our generation got to see the first Black mayor, the first Black council member, the first Black school board member. Those were all Ed Vincent, and regardless of where we stand with them politically, I tend to love the guy. He was one of my mentors, but what he had to go through to do what he did here, and that's what we honor. That's what we remember, and so we have our own history here that is important to actually even more important sometimes to those of us who grew up who are not Black, right? That's what we share. But even here on the dais, I always tell Councilman Dotson, man, his stories are amazing from where he came from. And so, it's something special that we still have that kind of connection to history. And so it's a great way to close out our month. I think that's all I got, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry that we don't have pictures of the children who won the essay contest. And we'll make sure that we'll look for some for next meeting because we want to really recognize the children who won the essay contest for MLK Day. I wanted to, clarify things. Chief Hurd is the interim chief while Chief Ranarata is recuperating. But I want to tell you this, if you do become chief, someday here, remember this, that I told you this. The applause you got today and the applause you'll get today for your reception is the last time anybody will ever applaud you again. I know that. I'm a 3-time police chief, all right? So welcome, and we appreciate your service. And Kiona, you know how I feel about your reports, so no more need be said about that. I want to have the Red Cross people stand by because we want to take a picture over by the city seal when we adjourn the meeting. And we're going to adjourn in the name of Leonka Cahy, just a wonderful person, Assistant Human Resources Director. She's been here 21 years and one of the kindest people you could ever meet. And closing in the name of Mrs. Shirley Pierre and Councilman Dotson gave her recognition. We're adjourned.